start out by telling you guys the story of a 16-year-old African-American girl who was kidnapped and held as a sex slave and then forced into prostitution. While she was on the street working as a prostitute, she was picked up by a white male who decided to take her back to his house and show off all of his guns and brag how he was a sharpshooter in the army. Later at the night, when they were in bed, he grabbed her thighs very aggressively, as she described, rolled over in the bed and looked as if he was going to grab something. In her mind, it was, I need to do something before he kills me first. So she decided to shoot him. She would then be charged with murder and sentenced to life in prison. I give you the story of Cynthia Brown. As a criminal justice major, the stories like Cynthia's has really inspired me to do more research, and it's also encouraged me to do more projects on the topic of how people are affected in our justice system and why things like this happen. Because it seems as a system that's for the people, by the people, it doesn't exactly seem to be just for everyone. That's why I decided to call my presentation the Whitewashed Justice System. From Merriam-Webster, which is a dictionary, the definition of whitewash is to cover up or to gloss over. And I really think that's a good way to describe our justice system. Today I'm going to explain to you how our justice system is set up, how it affects minorities, and specific case examples. So if you want to understand something about the justice system, there's a term you must understand known as the burden of proof. So according to Christian Witherup, who has various degrees in criminology and law, including her doctorate, says that when you're in civil court, there's a 51% chance that beyond a reasonable doubt, the person could have committed the crime. When they use stuff like this, it's to decide if you are innocent or guilty. And in state court, it's a 91% chance, in the Supreme, a 99% chance. If you've ever wondered why non-violent crimes get lengthy prison sentences, such as drug offenses, part of it could be due to how prisons are privately owned. So what that means is that private businesses give money to the prisons to keep a certain number of prisoners within them, keep the beds filled. But who gets to decide who fills these beds? Who are the prisoners that are going to stay in? Goes back again to this idea of burden of proof. Beyond a reasonable doubt that you could have committed the crime, they're trying to sell a story. No one's actually interested if you are innocent or guilty. They're trying to prove that they can either put doubt or take away doubt that you could have done the crime. This is also why a big reason why minorities are often a victim of our system. So according to Peter Cattell, who's a CQ researcher and journalist, he wrote in his article, Racial Conflict, 1 in 12 black men ages 25 to 54 are in jail and prison versus 1 in 60 white men. Also, according to Prison Incentive, which is where these graphs have come from, in 2010, per 100,000 people incarcerated, 126 are female, compared to an astonishing 1,325 males. And then here we have, there's 3,173 minorities, this black and Latino here combined, compared to 380 white males incarcerated. So again, why is this like this? The idea of burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt that you could have done it. Well, which story is easier to buy? The little black boy who grew up in the ghetto surrounded by crime? Or the white girl whose parents is a surgeon and a doctor? Who's more likely to reoffend? That now brings us to the broken window theory. What this basically says that if an area looks run down and broken up, then crime is more likely to occur. So when you see things like this, broken windows, graffiti, low income, who are most likely the people who live here? Minorities, your blacks, your Latinos, your Asians. So it's easy to think if this is the type of environment they live in, they're more likely to be violent or emotionally unstable. So if you're already grouping these two group of people with these type of mindsets and actions, it's easy to think why our law enforcement automatically assumes these people are going to be like this, which brings us to police brutality. So if I already think that you're violent before I see you, it explains how I'm going to react. It's the same ideals with a little kid hearing that a bigger kid is shoving kids into lockers. Even if he never sees that bigger kid shove a kid into lockers, he's still going to be afraid of him. So, if this is the mindset of how our system is played out, how does it look at in practice? What is it like for individual people who go through our system? So here I have Brock Turner, who was an All-American swimmer at Stanford University. He was charged with 2 counts of federal felony sexual assault and 1 count of attempted rape. Even though he's found guilty on all charges, he was only sentenced to 6 months in prison and only ended up serving half of that. But then we have cases such as Trayvon Martin, who was a 17-year-old African-American male shot to death by police officer George Zingerman. George Zimmerman came to cross Trayvon Martin after a call of suspicious persons and was told not to leave his SUV. But then again, moments later, Trayvon Martin would be shot to death. Zingerman claimed self-defense, even though Trayvon Martin had nothing on him but a hoodie and a pack of Skittles. Casey Anthony, a white mother accused of murdering 2-year-old Kaylee Anthony. Kaylee was reported missing 31 days after her disappearance. She was then found in the burial site where her mom, Casey, used to bury her pets as a child. And even though her mother lied the entire way through the investigation and all the evidence pointed to her as someone who could potentially murder her daughter, she was found not guilty of murder and didn't serve a day in prison. Brooke Skylar Richardson, 20-year-old white female accused of burning her newborn and burying it in the backyard. She claims her baby was stillborn and she was scared and this is why she reacted this way, but no one can back up her claims because no one even knew she was pregnant. Sentenced to 3 years of probation. Ex-cop Amber Guyer, sentenced to 10 years in prison when she shot an unarmed black man because she approached the wrong apartment thinking it was hers. But then we have cases such as Kelly Williams-Bolar, who was sentenced to 5 years in prison for trying to send her kid to a better school and lying about her address. Sorry about that. Then we have Joseph Dijon, which is a white priest who impregnated a teen and was allowed to keep his job as a middle school teacher. And then finally here I have Stephon Clark, who was in his grandmother's backyard and police mistaken his cell phone for a gun and was shot to death by police. So, even though these are individual cases, they all lead to this trend that I was talking about, known as burden of proof, and the broken windows theory of us automatically assuming people to certain traits. And if these are the principle and ideals that our system is based upon, then it is clearly corrupt. And I challenge you guys to educate yourselves on how our system is set up and how it affects individuals, so that one day when Americans place their hands over their heart and say, one nation under God, and indivisible, and liberty and justice for all, we can mean it. Thank you.